The San Antonio Spurs are genuinely good this season. They're sitting second in a stacked Western Conference. They were one game away from winning the in-season tournament before falling to the Knicks in the final. They beat Oklahoma City 3 times. The same Oklahoma City that for months looked like a team nobody could really touch. And overall, they've performed significantly better than what most analysts, insiders, and Twitter experts expected back earlier. At the same time, the Spurs could realistically be even better, with several additional wins already locked in, if not for one strange and increasingly noticeable weakness that keeps popping up in the worst possible moments. San Antonio blows big leads, and they do it often enough that it's no longer just random bad luck. Yes, in the modern NBA, every team gives away large advantages from time to time because shooting variance is wild, pace is insane, and no lead truly feels safe anymore, but the Spurs have taken this habit to a different level, to the point where it's becoming part of how opponents approach games against them. An 11-point lead in the in-season tournament final against New York quietly turned into a 12-point loss. A 25-point cushion against the Pelicans somehow transformed into an equal game. Minnesota erased roughly 20 in one game. Golden State did it twice, and Houston joined the list just this week, which is only scratching the surface of how often this has happened. So why does this keep happening, and why does it feel so persistent? The first explanation is also the least exciting one, even if it's completely valid, because behind all the wins and the shiny spot near the top of the standings, San Antonio remains a very young team. Victor Wembanyama is only in his 3rd NBA season, Stephon Castle is in his 2nd, Dylan Harper is a rookie still learning how quickly NBA defenses punish hesitation. And while De'Aaron Fox was brought in specifically to stabilize things with experience and late-game calm, the core of this roster is still extremely young for a team occupying the 2nd seed. And youth rarely comes with consistency. The real difference between a young player and a seasoned one isn't talent, or whether someone can explode for 30 or 40 points on a hot night, but rather the ability to maintain a certain baseline across an entire season, without massive drops in focus, execution, or decision-making. Young teams fluctuate, sometimes over weeks, sometimes within a single game, and occasionally within just a few possessions, which is exactly how double-digit leads quietly disappear. Okay, we get it. Thanks for telling us that young teams can be inconsistent, you might say, and you'd be right because that was the most obvious take possible. The front office understood it, the coaching staff understood it, and most Spurs fans understood it as well, which is precisely why the team didn't rush into a massive trade for another veteran star at the expense of Castle or Harper. San Antonio chose patience, chose development, and accepted that mistakes and painful losses would be part of the process because growth, especially real growth, rarely happens without friction. So this part of the instability isn't something you can magically fix, and the only real solution is time. The second reason, however, is far more controversial and emotional, and it revolves around Mitch Johnson. Fans are generally willing to cut young players some slack, but when it comes to a head coach in his first full season, patience disappears almost instantly, and suddenly every negative moment becomes evidence of incompetence. If Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagnie end up 0 for 10 from downtown, the blame goes straight to Mitch Johnson. If Carter Bryant misses 3 dunks in a row, it somehow becomes Mitch Johnson's fault. And if Wembanyama decides to play a broken version of Kobe and to take difficult hero-style shots late against Houston, that too is pinned on the coach. In reality, roughly 90% of the Spurs' mistakes this season are individual, stemming from missed shots, poor reads, rushed decisions, or simple execution errors. Yet the coaching staff continues to absorb the criticism. But why does that happen? Part of it likely traces back to the summer, when many fans were unhappy with Mitch Johnson's appointment and wanted a more established name, which has created a quiet desire for failure just to validate that original opinion. The irony is that Mitch Johnson has outperformed expectations to such an extent that he's already being mentioned in Coach of the Year discussions, which wasn't remotely on the table a few months ago. But most of the hate directed at the Spurs coaching staff actually comes from so-called Spurs fans who, in reality, are more fans of one specific player than of the team itself. Yeah, I'm talking about the Sohan stans who have completely taken over the comment sections and managed to find something negative, and confirmation of their belief that everything would be better with Jeremy in literally every decision the coach makes. Jeremy's situation is a big topic on its own, but the way these fans behave often feels detached from reality and ends up doing more harm than good. turning actual basketball discussion into a never-ending search for confirmation of a pre-written conclusion. So no, the idea that San Antonio is blowing leads purely because Mitch Johnson is indecisive or unqualified is largely artificial, even if it isn't completely baseless. Anyone who watches these games honestly has moments where they're begging for a timeout, a lineup change, or some kind of intervention while another 10 or 20 point lead slips away. And Mitch Johnson does occasionally let situations play out longer than most coaches would. That doesn't come from a lack of ideas, but from the type of coach he is. Mitch belongs to the group of structural coaches who prioritize building a team capable of solving problems internally rather than relying on constant in-game adjustments and micromanagement. The emphasis is on fundamentals, on teaching players how to read the floor and make smart decisions on their own. And with a young roster, that philosophy inevitably leads to uncomfortable moments. There are times when it feels like Mitch knowingly allows outcomes that might cost a game, because he believes the long-term benefits outweigh the short-term damage. And whether you agree with that approach or not, it's not something that can be corrected instantly. As you can see, the first two reasons are pretty vague and general in nature, and no fan actually enjoys hearing this kind of stuff. Blah blah blah, young team, system coach, step by step, blah blah blah. But what are we supposed to do right now? Well, for fans like that, I do have a third reason, and this one is much more practical and down to earth. Let's stop pretending the elephant in the room isn't there and just admit it. The Spurs badly lack consistent three-point shooting, especially from the wings. As a team, the Spurs are hovering around 35% from three, placing them roughly 20th in the league, which on its own isn't catastrophic, but the real issue is how wildly inconsistent those shots are. Before the season, everyone knew that Castle and Harper struggled badly from deep, ranking among the weakest shooters in the league at this stage of their careers, while Wembanyama and Fox, though respectable, aren't elite high-volume snipers you can rely on every night. That compromise was acceptable only if the wings and forwards could consistently stretch the floor. Early in the season, until around the new year, that plan worked almost perfectly, with Julian, Devin, and HB all shooting efficiently and creating real spacing. Then the cracks appeared. Some players went down with another injury, another fell into a slump so severe it earned him nickname Mr. 0%. And just Champagnie has been solid, although consistency has never truly been Julian calling card. The Houston game summed it up perfectly, as 7 made threes before halftime were followed by a second half full of misses and heavy bricks, highlighting just how unpredictable relying on him can be. When Julian is hot, he can shoot with anyone in the league, but neither he nor the coaching staff can reliably predict when that version will show up, which makes roster planning extremely difficult. So what's the solution here, and how does San Antonio actually address this issue? Do they trade for a proven shooter like Trey Murphy or Michael Porter Jr.? Do they wait and hope Harrison Barnes breaks out of his slump? Or do they commit more minutes to Carter Bryant and bet on rapid development? There's no quick answer to that question, and it really deserves a separate video. Smash the like button and I'll break it all down in the next one, and I promise this time I won't disappear for another 3 months.